When Donald Trump was president, he often used exciting words to talk about his plans. He wanted people to feel hopeful about the future of America. One phrase he used a lot was the Big Beautiful Bill. This was his special name for a very large law he wanted to pass. He talked about this bill to get people excited. It was a promise to make big changes and improve the country in many ways. This simple phrase was easy to remember and made his ideas sound very grand and important. He used this phrase for different ideas, but one of the most famous was for infrastructure. Infrastructure means all the basic things a country needs to work well. This includes roads, bridges, tunnels, and airports. Trump said that America's infrastructure was old and falling apart. He promised that his big beautiful bill would fix everything. He painted a picture of new, modern roads and shiny airports all across the nation. This was a very popular idea because many people saw the problems with their own eyes every day. The idea of rebuilding America was a key part of his campaign and his presidency. He wanted to show that he could get big projects done. The name Big Beautiful Bill was more than just words. It was a brand. It represented a powerful promise of action and renewal. For his supporters, it was a sign that a strong leader was finally going to take care of the country's foundational needs. It made them believe that major positive changes were coming soon, and that America would be rebuilt better than ever before. This promise was meant to create a feeling of national pride and progress. Trump described a future where travel would be faster and safer, and where the United States would have the best infrastructure in the world. He spoke directly to communities that felt left behind, telling them that their towns would also see new projects and improvements. The phrase Big Beautiful Bill became a symbol of this optimistic vision, a simple and powerful way to communicate a very complex and expensive goal to the American people. The plan behind the Big Beautiful Bill for infrastructure had a very large number attached to it, $1 trillion. This huge amount of money was supposed to fix the nation's problems. It sounded like the government was going to spend a lot to build new things. The $1 trillion figure was easy to remember and sounded very impressive. It made people believe that the government was ready to make a massive investment to modernize America's essential systems, from the water pipes under the ground to the airports in the sky. However, the plan was not as simple as it sounded. The federal government was not going to provide all $1 trillion. The real plan was for the government in Washington, D.C. to spend only $200 billion. This money was meant to be like a seed. The hope was that this federal seed money would encourage other groups to invest their own money. The government wanted states, cities, and private companies to see the federal investment and decide to contribute the rest of the money needed to reach the trillion-dollar goal. This type of plan is called a public-private partnership. The idea is that the government and private businesses can work together to build big projects. The government helps get the project started, and the private companies come in to help finish it, hoping to make a profit later on. For example, a private company might agree to help build a new toll road. They would pay for construction and then make money from the tolls that people pay to drive on it. This was the central idea for funding the Big Beautiful Bill. So the trillion-dollar promise was really a goal, not a guarantee of federal spending. It depended heavily on others to provide about 80% of the total funds. The Trump administration believed this was a smarter way to spend money. They thought it would encourage a lot of new construction without putting all the cost on the national government. The success of the entire plan rested on the hope that private investors and local governments would be willing and able to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on these infrastructure projects. One of the main goals of the Big Beautiful Bill was to make building things much faster. For a long time, getting permission to start a big construction project, like a new bridge, could take many years. There were many rules to follow and many government offices to get approval from. This slow process was often called red tape. The Trump administration said this red tape was a major problem. They wanted to cut the approval time down from 10 years to just 2 years, making it easier and quicker to start building. Another important goal was to help rural America. Many people in small towns and country areas felt that the government often forgot about them. They had old roads and slow internet, and their needs were not always a top priority. The infrastructure plan promised to change that. A special part of the $200 billion in federal money was set aside just for projects in rural areas. This was meant to ensure that smaller communities would also get their share of new roads, bridges, and better technology, helping them connect and grow. The plan also aimed to encourage the use of new and smart technology. The goal was not just to repair old things, but to build new things in a better way. This included supporting what they called transformative projects. These were projects that could completely change how things worked. This might mean building super-fast train lines or creating new, more efficient energy grids. The idea was to push America to be a leader in innovation and to build infrastructure that was ready for the future, not just the present. In simple terms, the bill's objectives were clear speed, fairness, and innovation. speed up the building process by cutting rules, ensure fairness by investing in rural areas that were often overlooked, and drive innovation by supporting advanced projects that would keep America competitive. These goals were designed to appeal to many different groups of people. They offered a vision of a country that was not only repaired, but also improved, becoming more efficient and technologically advanced for everyone, no matter where they lived. Despite all the big talk and exciting promises, the Big Beautiful Bill for Infrastructure never became a law. One of the biggest problems was disagreement over money. Many politicians, especially Democrats, did not like the funding plan. They argued that $200 billion from the federal government was not nearly enough to fix the country's huge infrastructure problems. They believed that more direct government spending was needed to make a real difference, and they were worried that relying on private companies would not work for every community. Critics also had, some serious doubts about the private investment part of the plan. They worried that private companies would only want to invest in projects where they could make a lot of money. For example, a company might build a new toll road near a big, busy city, but that same company would probably not want to spend money fixing a small old bridge in a rural town because there would be no way to make a profit from it. This meant that the most needed repairs in less populated areas might never get done under this plan. Another major roadblock was the national debt. In 2017, before the infrastructure plan was fully pushed, the government passed a major tax cut. This tax cut meant the government would be collecting less money, which was expected to make the national debt bigger. Some Republicans, who are often worried about government spending, were hesitant to approve another $200 billion for infrastructure so soon after. They were concerned that it would add too much to the debt, and they couldn't agree on how to pay for it. Because of these disagreements, the plan got stuck. Week after week, the White House would announce it was Infrastructure Week, a time to focus on the plan. But nothing ever happened in Congress. The event became a running joke among journalists and critics because it was announced many times, but no bill was ever voted on. The political will was just not there. Without agreement on the funding details and with growing concerns about its fairness and cost, the Big Beautiful Bill faded away without ever reaching a vote. In the end, Donald Trump's Big Beautiful Bill for Infrastructure is remembered more as a famous saying than as a real law. It shows how a powerful political slogan can get people's attention but may not lead to actual change. The promise of rebuilding America was very popular, but the details of the plan created too many disagreements. The idea of $1 trillion investment was exciting, but the reality of where that money would come from was too complicated and controversial for Washington to solve at the time. The slogan was a success, but the legislation was not. The failed plan is often compared to the infrastructure law that was passed later by the next president, Joe Biden. The Biden administration's plan was different in a very important way. It relied much more on direct federal government spending to pay for projects. Instead of using a small amount of seed money to attract private investors, it dedicated a much larger sum of government funds to go straight to fixing roads, bridges, water pipes, and internet access. This approach gained more support from both parties in Congress and eventually became law. The story of the Big Beautiful Bill serves as a lesson in politics. It highlights the big gap that can exist between a grand vision and the difficult work of creating and passing a law. A catchy phrase can win support and create excitement, but a successful bill needs careful planning, political compromise, and agreement on the small details, especially on how to pay for everything. Without that consensus, even the most popular ideas can fail to move forward, leaving the promises unfulfilled and the problems unsolved for a longer time. Today, the phrase Big Beautiful Bill is a piece of American political history. It represents a specific moment when there was a lot of talk about a national renewal that never quite began. It stands as a symbol of big ambitions that got stuck in the complex machinery of government. While the roads and bridges still needed fixing, the slogan itself became a reminder of a grand plan that remained just that, a plan. It shows that in Washington, turning a powerful idea into a signed law is one of the hardest jobs there is.